After the war ended, I was in Czechoslovakia, and I might ought to throw this in too. I tell you how I love to hunt and fish. When I was in Czechoslovakia, there after the war ended, we was just there just waiting a chance to get to come home, and it was probably what 5 months before I got a chance to come home. But anyhow, there was this stream there, a good size, pretty good sized stream. They're pretty close to where we were, and it had fish in it. Well, we had a bunch of hand grenades left over from the war, and two of my buddies and I would take a bunch of those hand grenades, take a jeep and take a bunch of those hand grenades, and we would go to this stream. And the stream has, if you've been around the stream any, you know it has fast water running, swift riffles, you know, and then it'd have slow running, deeper holes, you know. We would get in this swift water and run the fish out of that water into the deeper, slow running holes, and we would place ourselves out there on the bank about so far apart, I'd say 15 or 20 feet apart, you know, there, and we would have one of those hand grenades, and we would pull the pin in that hand grenade, then somebody would give the word, and we'd lob the hand grenade over in that water at the same time. Okay, when those hand grenades exploded, it would knock those fish out or something, whatever done to them, they'd come to the top and start floating on top. And I don't know whether it killed them or whether they was just in shock like that or not. But anyhow, we would get down below here, and as they floated by, we would catch them and put them in a bag or something, you know, we had to put them in. I don't remember exactly what we was putting them in. But we'd go back to our camp after a while with a half a sack full of fish. Now, let me tell you something, kiddos. Our cooks loved to get them. We'd start in and kick and dress all those fish out, and the cooks would cook them for us, and we ate good as long as those fish lay. That's better than eating those C&K rations and all. But we did that and all of them. But anyhow, let's move on here because we're going to run out of time here after a while.
I want to know what you ate on the battlefield, like when you were. Did you have? You know, like when you were marching or going places, what did you eat?
When we was actually out there in combat, we were away from there. We had a headquarters platoon back here that had a kitchen, but they couldn't fix any meals for us because we was involved up here, you know, and we had what they call C&K ration. Now the C ration was just dried stuff in plastic, you know, but the K rations, we'd get them in metal. A lot of that would be in metal cans, you know, and it'd be a little better food than the C ration because you could open up a can of Viennas or something like that and have that. Then that was your K ration. That's what we ate was C and K rations, you know, because unless we got a break and had a time to come back and get reorganized and what have you, and our main kitchen would fix some special food for us then that we could go through with our mess kit and get. But out there in the battles, you was eating those C&K rations all together. No. Well, after the war ended, we got to. I tell you, that was in Czechoslovakia and then when we got a chance to come home, they put us on in boxcars, in old boxcars, packed us in old boxcars and put us on a train heading for the port at France, Le Havre, France, to ship us back across. Well, we rode about 2 days and nights in those boxcars, and they'd have points that they would stop and feed us. You know, we'd get off there and get in the chow line, and we'd eat, and then we'd get back in those boxcars and try to get a little sleep if we could. But it took us about 2 days and nights to get from Czechoslovakia there to the port. And we loaded on these little victory ships, and it held about 3,000 soldiers instead of that 22,000. And so we headed back across and all towards Boston, Massachusetts. It took us 10 days and nights to get back across. And about 1,000 miles out, we hit one of those storms that they have on the Atlantic in the fall, you know. And the ship, about 50 miles ahead of us, lost its propeller and rudder, and it had to be towed back to Le Havre, France to load the soldiers on another ship. But anyhow, the water's so rough that we wasn't allowed to be out on deck at night because they was afraid for us to be out there at night. And some of those boys that got so seasick, they went to bed and didn't get up till we landed. But I never missed a meal. It didn't bother me. I never missed a meal. Well, we landed at Boston, Massachusetts. Got on the train there and went to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, where we was discharged. And I got on the train there, went to into Knoxville, Tennessee, and then I caught a bus from there to Copper Hill, Tennessee. And Copper Hill was right on the Tennessee and Georgia line. And I run up on a friend, an older guy there that was there with the car, and he picked me up and took me out to see where my little daughter was living. Cynthia, our oldest daughter, was 27 months old when I got back, and all. And so we spent a couple of days there before we went down to another county to see my parents. And while we was there, we was out walking around there and all, and looking at the place, And Ona, my wife, pointed out this particular tree to me. And she said, "You see this tree here?" She said, "See how much prettier it is than the other trees?" And I said, "Yeah, it is prettier than the other trees, isn't it?" And she said, "Let me tell you why." She said, "This is where Cynthia and I would come out here every day, and we would kneel here and pray for your return." And said, we kept this tree watered with our tears. That made me know that there's some good prayers being sent up in my behalf while I was over there. Okay, a couple of days later, we needed to go see my parents, and I need to see my parents and my younger sisters that was there with my parents. And my dad was an invalid there for several months before I got home, and my mother and younger sisters was taking care of him. And all, and he had one of those crippling diseases, and whenever I got home, he could only use this one arm. He's there they had a hospital bed out there for him, one that you could roll around and take care of him in that. And he could only move that. Well, when we got on this bus and went down to see my family, we got off the bus out at the highway there, and my family lived about a quarter of a mile from the highway, and my sister seen the bus stop and seen us get off, and of course they come running to meet us. And they decided they'd go back and tell Papa, that's what we called her dad, Papa, we called him Papa, and tell Papa that Jack and Ona and the little girl was showing up. Didn't want me to walk in on him like that, afraid, it'd surprise him, and didn't know what might happen in him in that shape, and all. Well, they told him, said, Papa said, Jack and Ona, the little girls here, come in and said, we didn't want them to walk in on you, so we're telling you ahead of time, about it. Well, I went in there, and he was laying there in that bed, and when I walked up, he stuck that hand up to me and said, "Son," the first thing he said to me, said, "Son, this is no surprise." He said, "I haven't had anything to do but just lay here and talk to my Lord in your behalf." And he said, "He promised me that I'd see you again." That is prayer, an answered prayer, isn't it, kid? He promised me that I'd see you again. Well, I was there, I was home for a week. And my family thought, well, I had two younger brothers in the service, but both wars was over then, and they weren't going to have to go, and they was going to be getting out pretty soon. And it seemed like with the family, Jack's home from the war and didn't get killed or wounded anything, and never couldn't anything bad happen. I was home for a week, 1 week to a day. I got home on Thursday the 27th September, and on Thursday the 4th of October, my oldest brother and his little 4-year-old son got hit by a train, and both of them got killed. At his funeral, he and the little boy's funeral, I couldn't shed any tears, because I had seen so much of that, and I had got hardened to it, I guess, to where I couldn't shed any tears. Okay, less than 3 months later, then, just before Christmas of 45, there my dad died, and all, and so, but anyhow, that kind of what happened with the war, with me, and all, and also. Well, after I got home there, that was in the fall of 45. In 46, I worked at different public jobs, working at a sawmill. You kids don't know what a sawmill is. That's where you cut the timber out there in the mountains and haul it to the sawmill and have it sawed into lumber. And I did all that. and all, and worked at different jobs. And then 40, that was through 46, and at 47, my wife and I rented this little one-horse farm, we called it there, you know, just a small farm, and we farmed it. And then we farmed it for 2 years, and then the fall of 48 there, we had this 5-acre patch of cotton, and we were out there picking that cotton in the fall of 48, and the biggest girl, she was 5 then, the oldest girl was 5 by then, and she had her little sack along there picking with us, and every time she'd get it full, I'd have to give her a little money, and we'd empty it, you know, and all. And the little baby was less than 2 years old, the second little girl was less than 2 years old. We had her playpen up in the back of the pickup there, and all, and so we was out there picking that cotton, and we picked it out of the burr in Texas. They pulled the whole burr and all, but we picked it out and dragged it in that old 6-foot sack or whatever it was behind us there, you know. My back got tired, and I raised up and put my hands on my hip, and I was looking in her direction, but I was looking out into the sky, and I said to her, I said, you know, I believe there's a place in this world somewhere that's a better place to make a living than this, and if you're game, we'll find it. And and she raised up and put her hands on her hip and looked directly at me, and she said, I'm game, you start looking. And we started selling everything that we had, you know. I sold the corn as we gathered it and what have you, and she had put up 150 quarts of fruits and vegetables and what have you, and we sold all that, and we sold the furniture on contract that when we let moves people to come in and get it. And just before Christmas of 48, we had the people come in and get it, and I took her and the girls over to another county to her parents, and we spent Christmas of 48 with them. And January 41st of 49, I headed west, and ended up with a farm job with Cordy Potts out here in the Ray community. And so I lived with Cordy and Helen there for about 3 weeks in their home with them, getting this little house ready for owning and the girls and I. Well, when I got it ready, I couldn't call her because they didn't have any phones and we didn't either. And so I sent her a telegram that I was ready for her and the girls, and she sent me a telegram back what time that she and the girls would get on the train in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and what time that they would arrive in Amarillo. So one night about 9 o'clock, I went up there and got them off the train and took them out there to the farm. And the next morning, got up and the sun was shining pretty and bright, you know, and my wife thought the sun was rising in the west, you know. She was used to those mountains and hills and wasn't used to this big flat country out here, you know, and whatever. But anyhow, it was 3 years before we got to go back. She was homesick a lot and whatever, but after we got to go back and make one trip back home, that was all over, you know. And we feel like that the Lord was really smiling on us, letting us land in this country here, because there's so many, we've had a good life, and there's so many good people here that we've made friends with, you know, and all. So it's been a good life for us, yes, right. And I have really enjoyed visiting with you kids. Like I say, because of us winning World War II, you have your freedom like you have it today. You're not having to speak German, not having to speak Japanese, and you wouldn't, if they'd have won, you wouldn't have been having the good life, the free good life like you're having it right now. So there's a lot of sacrifices given so you could have this freedom, you know, and all. So, and the real heroes, it wasn't me that got to come home. The real heroes is the one that did give their life for this freedom that we have today. Yeah.